their leader wants. All right, we'll come back. What was the last time the world's two largest nations went to war, India and China? It was 1962. They just might be doing it this weekend again. It's the Dark Secret Place. Bryan Suits in here until midnight. KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
Dark Secret Place.
This radioactivity is coming from
Bryan Suits on KFI.
Nearby, a complete radio transmitter will actually broadcast from tape before the shot.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
Dark Secret Place with Bryan Suits on KFI.
KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Bryan Suits in here until midnight, and normally we start here at 10 o'clock, but we have a super extended special Chargers Saturday night version where we started here at 9 o'clock, going heavily into North Korea, and we're not even done with North Korea, but Wall Street Journal with a story today. Investigators repeatedly warned Navy ahead of deadly collisions. So what the Wall Street Journal revealed is, probably not surprising, but still, nevertheless, shocking. We'll get to that. So then we hear around 6 p.m., Pacific time, that the North Koreans launched 3 intermediate-range missiles from the previously used launch site in North Korea, and one of them evidently was destroyed after launch, apparently, and there's a little bit of confusion about the other two, that the other two landed in the Sea of Japan in sort of the normal impact zone for them. So it looks like the North Koreans actually command detonated one of the missiles, and then 2 other missiles went wherever they were supposed to hit. But the point is, CNN and others, let's see, what's CNN calling it? CNN's calling it stop it. CNN's calling it a test. North Korea launched a barrage of missiles Saturday, less than 1 week after U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson praised the country for showing restraint in its weapons program. And any media outlet that is calling it a test is, again, missing the point that these are not tests anymore. The North Koreans are doing practice because part of their war plan, any war plan for North Korea, whether that be defensive or offensive, if they reinvade South Korea or whatever, then rockets are going to be a big part of their plan. Intermediate range and short range ballistic missiles, like their Scud variants, their extended range Scuds, would shower South Korea. North Korean artillery can reach Seoul, but they would want to, while they have the strategic initiative, while they have the surprise, they would want to rain as much destruction on the Korean peninsula as they could. And so that would mean that some of the other major cities, like Busan in the south, and other major industrial cities would be targeted. And that is what the multiple missile launches are. It's practice for that. They're not sending they are sending a message, but the primary purpose of this is practice for the North Korean military, which the Korean People's Rocket Forces, which is a branch. It's not part of the Air Force or the Army. It's a separate branch. They are currently the Mavericks. They're the golden boys of the North Korean military. On TV in North Korea, they usually do these just, over-the-top martial displays in high definition of parades, and Kim Jong-un is inspecting a fish factory or a shoe factory or whatever, right? That's the nightly diet on North Korean TV. Well, over the past 3 years, when the military is and it's frequently featured, and they have high-definition shots with patriotic music of MiG-21s flying low past the camera and tanks going cross-country and tanks on parade grounds. But more and more and more, they are featuring the rocket guys. And the head of the Strategic Rocket Forces is a household name in North Korea. His staff, his deputies are household names. The North Koreans have documentaries about the individual missile models, the Hwasong-14, their ICBM. It got a 2-hour documentary. And so the rocket guys are front and center with the North Korean people. And so when they do, like earlier in the year, they did a 4-missile launch. And the 4 extended range Scuds were shot on HD from 20 different angles. The North Koreans usually get this stuff out within 24 hours. There's probably video of the 3-missile launch already. I'll check it out. There wasn't 2 hours ago, but there probably is by now. But when they did the 4-missile launch, they shot it with HD, multiple angles. They edited, all of it together, so you saw the launch happening from, a bunch of different angles. There were 4 Scud missiles in a row, about 100 meters apart from each other, in a straight line, and they launched almost simultaneously. And then the North Koreans made a point of showing that, of running that footage from launch to boost phase until they were out of sight in an uncut take. They put a 2-minute take out there for public release just to make the point that, look at this, we are technically proficient. We had 4 missiles roll out there, erect, and launch without a problem. And not only did they launch and clear their erector launchers, but they went downrange, and there was no visible malfunction. So they sent a message earlier this year, and they sent a message yesterday, which is, you didn't see this coming. We didn't warn anyone. We're doing it because this is how we practice for war. So that was the message yesterday, because the American-South Korean exercises are still going on. U.S. Pacific Command, in its initial assessment of the launch yesterday, said the initial assessment said that the first and third missiles failed in flight. They later amended that statement to say that the missiles flew approximately 250 kilometers in a northeastern direction. The second missile appeared to have blown up almost immediately at launch, the command said. So either there was a malfunction and the command detonated it or blew itself up. But regardless, the North Koreans are showing us that they can send a message and they can do it without warning, and that this is so routine now for them that these are no longer tests. The missiles that they shot yesterday and the missiles they shot earlier this year, the 4-missile thing, those are mass-produced. Those are not test missiles anymore. The warheads are kind of testy because they have maneuverable warheads now. Now that they know that the United States is going to put has put the THAAD missile system, the Theater High Altitude Air Defense Missile System in South Korea, they know that missile system shoots incoming missiles down. It does not shoot missiles down in the boost phase. It is not a tail chaser. When the North Koreans launch a missile and it goes northeast or it comes south to South Korea, the THAAD system doesn't shoot at them before they go out to their apogee, to outer space. The THAAD system shoots them when they come back. And so the North Koreans happen to know that for every measure, there's a countermeasure. So we put the THAAD system in South Korea. The North Koreans develop a maneuverable reentry vehicle. Now, this is for conventional warheads. On their Scuds, they have conventional or probably chemical warheads, but they don't have nukes. So even for those, they're getting all this operational experience on how to deploy the missiles, how to launch the missiles, how to manage the missiles, and then, oh, by the way, the reentry vehicles are maneuverable. So the THAAD system, keep in mind, it's re-entering at Mach 10. The THAAD is going upwards at Mach 8. And it is assuming a predictable ballistic path back down to the Earth. So that's what it's intercepting. If suddenly that warhead maneuvers, then it's a completely different ballgame. And again, this is a country of 19 million people, and they have us painted into a corner. So there's your North Korea. All right, when we come back, what is happening in Venezuela? The Venezuelans are acting like we are about to invade them. Do they know something that we don't know? I don't know. We'll talk about it right after this. It's the Dark Secret Place. Bryan Suits in here until midnight. KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the dark secret place. Bryan sits in here live until midnight. We'll start the YouTube stream here in just a second here, in probably the next commercial break, because we're getting reports of just problems with the iHeart stream. So not to worry, we'll start the YouTube stream here coming up here in just a little bit. But Venezuela is where we turn our attention. The next election for the Maduro government will be next year. If you have not been paying attention to Venezuela, here is the major event over the last couple of years. Besides the death of Hugo Chavez coming up on 5 years ago, the creation and the amendment of the Venezuelan Constitution to include now this super popular body, a super legislative body, is effectively handing the country over to the mob. It's allowing the mob to, by mob I mean like the French Revolution sense of the mob, that there is dictatorship by mob now. And normally, if a socialist country is trying to fail, if socialism is trying as hard as it can to implode, my approach, my policy would be to sit back and say, basically, hold my beer and watch it implode. For some reason, the Trump administration decided that saying that a military solution, a military backstop to Venezuela melting down would be an option. I don't know why that happened. I've got no idea. Because, like I say, the best thing to do when a socialist country is circling the toilet is to just let it get down there. Even if you got to go into the closet and get a wire coat hanger and break it up. Just let it circle and go in there. But Vice President Pence and President Trump made their statements. So, Venezuela held nationwide armed forces exercises on Saturday, calling on civilians to join reserve units to defend against the possible attack after U.S. President Donald Trump warned that a military option was on the table for the crisis-hit country. Trump made the threat 2 weeks ago, and on Friday he signed an order prohibiting dealings with new debt from the Venezuelan government or its oil company, Citgo, a move to hobble financing that Trump says is fueling the socialist dictatorship, which it is. Trump is correct about that. And we have every right in the world to cut off economic and financial dealings with Venezuela. If the Venezuelans are trying to refinance their debt in the U.S., we have every right in the world to tell American banks you can't work with that government. And then, oh, by the way, Venezuela, an oil-rich country, and yeah, the oil market's been down for the past 2 or 3 years, especially since fracking. That's part of the reason that Putin is going broke, is because of fracking. But Venezuela still, even with basically pumping gold out from below their feet, they still found a way to lose money. Venezuela doesn't refine their oil. They have to send their oil out of Venezuela and refine it elsewhere, usually in the U.S., and then it's shipped back to Venezuela as diesel or gas. The Venezuelan oil that's refined here in the U.S. goes to market as Citgo, Citgo. That is the Venezuelan state oil company. Trump could shut them down if he wanted tomorrow. But by publicly saying that a military option was on the table, what that did was it got a lot of the poor Venezuelans who are the power base for Hugo Chavez and now Maduro. It got them excited and angry and ready to do something, anything. And so today there were these shots of these 70-year-old militiamen, and they're wearing these khaki uniforms with blue or red stripes, and they're being handed rifles literally older than them. They're being handed the old Russian Mosin Nagant 9031. The Russian rifle of World War II, the Mosin Nagant, was designed before the turn of the century. It was designed in the 1890s. And it effectively is unaltered, except for different manufacturing methods. The rifle that you see today in Caracas, Venezuela, would be familiar to some Tsarist Cossack in 1895. And so these Venezuelan militiamen are out there getting rifles handed out to them, The Venezuelan military is all over the streets of Caracas, and they're making a big show about this. They're sending surface-to-air missile batteries out to the airport and things like this. And this is part of the problem in the big picture. If you ever find yourself as president of the United States and you are faced off against a dictator who, without your intervention, would implode anyway, don't give them the gift of an enemy. Here's a great example. Slobodan Milosevic was probably going to lose an election in Serbia, in Yugoslavia, in 1999. He was singularly unpopular. The Serbian people had rallied around him for the better part of 10 years. And he had gone to war on their behalf 4 different times. But by 1999, with NATO on the ground in the Balkans, with the NATO-imposed peace being enforced by NATO peacekeepers, primarily Americans, Milosevic was singularly unpopular until Bill Clinton told him what he can and can't do. And Milosevic was probably going to lose an election until the United States and NATO told him what he can and can't do. And this was when he had sent his secret police and his special police to Kosovo, which was the province of Kosovo, which was part of Yugoslavia. But it was trying to break apart, just like Slovenia did, just like Croatia did, just like Bosnia did. Kosovo was trying to break apart from larger Yugoslavia. And the United States said, don't do that. Milosevic became, because of the nature of the Serb people, they rallied around a bad guy. And they knew they did that. And so the same thing with Maduro. Maduro's not popular, not a popular guy. His country's out of money. So what does a dictator need when something like that happens? They need an enemy. Back in just a second. It's a Dark Secret Place. Bryan Suits in here until midnight, live on KFI M640. More stimulating talk. KFI and 40 more stimulating talk. It is a Dark Secret Place. Bryan Suits in here live until midnight, and we'll get around to Russian military exercises in along the border of NATO, which is what we used to call Eastern Europe, and a little more on Venezuela. And what if the world's 2 largest nations, China and India, went to war again? Of course, you all know that China and India went to war in the early 60s. So we'll get to that here in a little bit. I am live on the YouTube. If you go to unsheepyourself.com, unsheep yourself, like you're a sheep and you don't want to be a sheep anymore, so you would unsheep yourself. And we'll see how the Wi-Fi holds up this week. Last week, the things were not so hot, but it's not like we're a media technology company or something. I mean, oh yeah. So investigators from the Government Accountability Office, which, believe it or not, oversees all federal spending, the GAO actually has a mandate to inspect when money is squandered in the U.S. military. Because, of course, you can't rely on the Pentagon's auditors, now can you? Because they're pigs at the same trough. So the GAO apparently has been warning the U.S. Navy in regards to long-term effects of cutting training in navigation and just simple seamanship. Congressional investigators and military officials warned repeatedly about overworked sailors, shortened training schedules, and budget cuts in the... Pardon me, I have a coughing fit that I have to take care of. All right, all done. Where were we? Budget cuts in the years leading up to 2 fatal collisions involving U.S. Navy ships. This is what government auditors, lawmakers, and Pentagon officials said. The collisions in June and then last week, both Navy-guided missile destroyers operating in the Pacific left 17 sailors dead or missing. So, in other words, the 7th Fleet was deadlier than Afghanistan. More U.S. service personnel died in the Fitzgerald and McCain collisions than have died in Afghanistan. 3 reports in the past 2 years by the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, an independent watchdog agency, spelled out endemic problems in the U.S. Navy. They found through interviews as well as internal studies in the Navy that U.S. sailors, American sailors overseas, often arrive to their assigned ships without adequate skills and experience.